Good evening. How are you guys doing? Good, good, because there's a nice small group. We'll be able to really get some work done. So this is a good thing. This is a good thing. I think it's great. So, my name is John Gann. I am the former ED of CINE, and I am a filmmaker and a festival entrepreneur. I do lots of stuff. I'll give you my official log line later. But anyway, today's is a session about first impressions when you're going for a job. We're going to start with Kathy Jackalone, who is former VP of HR at Marriott and Solera and many large companies. She now consults. She was just yesterday at Hormel, where they how many pigs a day? 19,000 pigs a day. Wow. And she's a vegetarian, so when they offered her the Spam, she's like, no, thank you. She's going to talk about first impressions and things you should know, and about these playground personalities, which she will discuss further. I'm going to talk about pitching. Betsy and I come from the film world, in which you pitch projects all the time. You need to have an elevator pitch that's ready to go, that's one sentence long, et cetera. We're going to go over kind of how to write a film pitch, but then we're going to show you how to kind of convert that and how to write a personal statement for yourself. And I'm going to go through mine, et cetera, and kind of how I developed mine over the past few days. And then Betsy's going to talk about social media and cleaning up your social media act. Because I know you think that it's a cute little post today, but it might cost you a job tomorrow. So I'm going to start off with Kathy.
All right, thank you, John. Can I stand up?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
All right, I can do whatever I want. He never says that. So good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here, and I thank you for your time. I'm going to talk a few minutes about some tips about looking for a job, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about first impressions, and we're going to have a little fun. And I'll give you some of the philosophies as a hiring manager back in the day, what I looked for in candidates. So there's 3 tips I want to make sure you guys take home with you tonight. The first one is when you're looking for work, make sure you do what you love to do. It doesn't matter where, but you have to love it. And why do you think loving what you do is critically important? Anybody? Say it again. You'll be happy and you'll do a good job if you love it. Why else? Why else is it important? You'll have fun. The day will go by super fast. Why else? You need to be authentic, right? If you don't love what you do, people are going to see it. They're absolutely going to see it. And it's going to be on your face, in your work product, and just any kind of interactions that you have. People will see that you're probably not either having fun or loving what you do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to save money early. Now, why is it important to save money early? Retirement money early. I know the R word's kind of scary. You guys think it's far away, but it's really not far away. Yeah, or it goes really fast. So why is it important to save money? Yeah. Exactly. You always want the flexibility to know that you have some room, and if you enter in an employment situation and you don't like it, you have some flexibility to make some other choices. Great. Why else is it important to save some money? Yes? Compound interest. So every 7 years, money doubles, right? And I'm a little nervous about the stock market these days because it's kind of wacky. So if you follow it, it's kind of scary that every day it's up 100 points. I watch tomorrow something bad happens, but it's nice to have some money because most of us stay in jobs because of the money, and it makes you more miserable because now you don't love what you do, but you feel like you have to stay. And so having a couple of months set aside for some safe harbor money is a good thing. And the third thing I want to make sure, which is where we'll talk a little bit about my playground personality, some of the theories I work with every day. The third thing is make sure you fit with the culture of the company. So we kind of made a joke about me and being a vegetarian and Hormel Foods. I was with the corporate communications group yesterday and on Monday. They have amazing, tell Michael, they have amazing video production. They do amazing content. They do amazing poster work. They do amazing engagement on the internal side with employees and also on the on the outside of and Wall Street and the stock market and all of that good stuff, right? They have $9.5 billion in sales. Yeah, that's a big wow. And for those of you who might not think about internal communications or video production, or they have a cool test kitchen. I felt like I was on the Food Network. They have a whole photography area where they actually take pictures of all the food. So make sure wherever you choose to work that it fits with your values and it fits with the style of how you like to work. And I think that's the most important part. And so just by a show of hands, how many people like to work in environments where there's good communication, lots of loyalty, focusing on harmony and peace and feeling happy at work, right? Who likes to work in organizations where it's more structured, it's more scheduled, more decisive? Yeah. And how about having fun? Always running, always action-oriented. And maybe a company where it's a little deep in its philosophy and it really wants employees to kind of learn the philosophy and live by the philosophy of the organization. So you need to figure out, those are 4 quadrants I refer to as the peacemaker, the person who really cares about people, the organizer, the person who really cares about process, the revolutionary, the person who really cares about action and movement, like fire, police, emergency room doctors, and then the kind of the philosophers and the writers and the people that really spend the time thinking, and those are the peacemakers. Excuse me, those are the steamrollers. And so it's real important that if you're in an environment where you're feeling like it's not a match, it could be that the company is not in alignment with who you are as a person. So I spent 10 years at Marriott. It's a very organized company. Bill Marriott knows what his penny profit is every day. There's a huge video communication group there. Once a year, I spend time making videos about anti-harassment training, employee engagement. We did a big event every year for the Award of Excellence where the whole family was there. We gave out awards. We did a lot of writing. There was Kathleen Matthews was the head of corporate communications for a while. I wasn't there at the time, but they spend a lot of time and a lot of money on employee communications. And so that, again, might be an area where you are interested in. However, as that culture was there, I got promoted 3 times. It was exciting. I was like, wow, this matches. Then I left and went to a scientific company. And I can say this because I married one. They're a little weird. And they're really more in their heads thinking about what's next, the future, a lot of research and development. And nobody talked to me at Solera for about 2 months. I felt like weird. I quit every week, and I was hoping that I could go back to Marriott because I didn't feel like the culture was there. I liked the people, but I wasn't clicking. So one morning, it was Saturday morning, I was brainstorming by myself because nobody talked to me. And one of the head scientists came in and says, Kathy G, what are you doing? And I said, well, nobody talks to me, so I'm brainstorming about how we're going to hire 900 people in 11 months. I'm doing it by myself. So he said, hold on. And about, 5 minutes later, I had 6 folks in my office, and we were all brainstorming, and we had a great session. So the culture there wasn't great for me, but I got hooked on the science and sequencing the genome, going to the White House, the fight with NIH, all the intellectual people that were in that space, the people that I got to meet from Rockefeller and from Hopkins. It was exciting. It was a short tour of duty. It was a short tour, 2.5 years. My first 2 were 10 years. But I really was open to it after I resisted it for 2 months. And then I never worked again. That kind of cured me. So I said, okay, so this is not going to work for me. I needed to do something to make sure that I fulfilled my need, which was how do I help organizations get better every day? So my job every day is to help people say the right thing the first time. So I do a lot of work with communications, a lot of executive coaching, a lot of supervisory training. And so I'm going to have you guys ask me a couple questions in a few minutes. But first impressions, it depends upon where you are. Where you're going, where you're interviewing. I visit clients every day, and I always ask, what's the culture of the dress? And they'll say, oh, it's business casual. So it's okay to ask that question. It's okay to make sure that you ask them, what are the hours of operation? How does the organization function? How does it celebrate? Does it celebrate? What are the values? What organizations do they follow? Absolutely. You can go on their website and figure all that out, but until you actually engage the interviewer, you might be wrong. So absolutely be open and ask the questions. Don't ask questions like, when am I going to get promoted? When am I going to get my next raise? You know, what happens if I don't like my boss? So those questions people don't really need to ask in the interview. But absolutely first impressions matter. I mean, everyone here looks pretty nice, right? Because you're in school, but you don't know. Some organizations might be a little ultra casual, or some might be ultra conservative. So you got to find that out. But ask the interviewer before you get there. First impressions: shaking hands, making eye contact, making sure you get there early, so you don't feel like you're rushed when you get in there, and make sure you answer the question that you're asked. And if you don't know the answer to the question, don't fill the dead silence by saying, "That's a good question." That absolutely drives me insane as the interviewer. Well, of course it's a good question. I'm asking it, okay? And so we do that sometimes, right? We fill the dead air because we're trying to like click through our heads and figure out what we're gonna say. So come prepared at the interview with a couple of things, right? They're gonna ask the questions, the famous questions. What are you good at? What are you not good at? Why do you think you're a good fit for this job? So my story is, we were interviewing for a supervisor in a transportation department in a pretty big, large school district. And the gentleman that came, I knew him because he was a working supervisor. And he came to the interview in a motorcycle biker outfit. Like seriously. Like leather cap, leather pants, leather jacket. And the interview panel kind of freaked out. Because they weren't expecting him. And the interview panel was so put off by his outfit that they heard nothing that he said. And so he didn't get the job. And so they asked me, can I go and talk to him? Because they wanted me to give him the feedback. And so I said, you know what? You were the guy, but your outfit was so distracting, they didn't choose you. Guess what? Year later, khakis, sport jacket, white shirt, got the job. Okay, because we knew he could technically do it, but that first impression just put off the interview panel. So you just never know. Do the best you can to be conservative. You just never know where that panel, interview panel might be. And that's a good thought too. Ask if it's a one-on-one interview or if it's a panel interview. Because don't freak yourself out when you get there thinking you're just going to talk to Joe or Jane, and then you open up the door and there's like cast of thousands in there, right? Has that happened to you before? And it freaks you out. It was bad. Yeah, it was bad. And it freaks you out if you're not expecting it. So it's okay to ask the recruiter or the HR person or whoever your contact is helping the connection with the company to ask, is it a one-on-one interview, like 8 round robins throughout the day, or is it like a panel interview? Or is it like a Senate hearing where it's you and like 400 people and everyone's like drilling you? And so it's okay to ask how many people might be there. Those are just some of the ideas that I wanted to share with you tonight. As I was walking over with John, somebody had called me. He's a pretty high-level communications guy, and he's looking for a new job, and he's having trouble, and so he's not a happy man. And every job interview he goes on, he doesn't get. And it's not because he's not technically competent. There's something that he's giving off, right? Some energy that's not connecting with the company. And it's because he's not happy. Because he's mad that he has to find a job. His employer told him he has till the end of June, and then he doesn't have a job there. And so I spent some time with him before Christmas saying, Brian, you gotta get your head in the game, you know, and you gotta put on your happy face, put on your game face if you have to, even if you're not happy, because it's gonna leak out in the interview. So if you're not pumped up or you're not connected to yourself, it'll absolutely come out in the interview too. So make sure you kind of loosen up and feel good about it before you get to the interview day. So I don't know if we'll do questions at the end or if I can ask. Yeah, so does anybody have any specific questions? And want to make sure I'm here for you guys, so I want to make sure you get what you need. Yes, sir. So what do I love? I love when people engage me. So shake my hand, ask me how I am, and I love the confidence. I like the tone of voice. I like the posture. I like people to feel and look confident. Confidence for me says, wow, because I can teach somebody how to move and navigate in a company, but I can't teach the confidence. And so for me, I'm not saying direct and fearless and scare people out of their wits like when you're in the interview and like banging your hand on the desk, but have that personal confidence. Yeah. Is that good? Great. Someone else? Yes, please.
How would you suggest making your stand out if it's a group interview? Like if you're doing it with multiple people?
Yeah, the panel. Those panels could be deadly, right?
Or like I had one where it was like me and two other people was with a panel of people and they interviewed us together as a group.
Oh,
How would you like make yourself stand out when you're within a
interesting. That's like the first time so that you guys were all applying for the same job?
Yeah, and they had us all sit down together and then they watched us interact with each other and then they talked to us.
Okay, so this is not the HR Kathy G that's going to respond here. Okay, so that screams volume to the culture. Okay, if you felt uncomfortable, it might not be the place for you. It might be a competitive situation, and everything might be competitive. Who gets the budget money? Who gets to order the supplies? Who gets to go on the trips? That, to me, it really says volumes about the culture of that company. So I personally have never, and I've been doing this for 100 years, I wouldn't even do that because of the fact that those people might feel really uncomfortable. And that competition is just not a healthy competition. However, it does tell people, are they calm under pressure? Can they, argue? Can they be polite and reserved? Are they gonna just let someone else just take over the floor? I could see why they would do it, but if that's not something that you can identify with, I would just say, check please, and not go back there. Yeah, not go back there. So the way they treat you during the interview, it's like dating. It doesn't get any better after the first 6 months, okay? So if you get tricked, and like dating, you could get tricked. If you get tricked, then I could say, well, at least you made an effort. But if you're seeing signs the receptionist isn't very friendly, or there is no receptionist, or you walk into the front door, there's no pictures on the wall, you don't know if you're at an architecture company, a waste management company, or a scientific company, you don't see things on the wall that kind of draws you in, people are not happy and not smiling, those are all signals that something might be going on there. And so don't miss those signals. I don't care how desperate you are for a job, it won't end well. If you take a job and say, I knew something didn't feel right, but I just had to have a job, because it doesn't end well. So really be selective and really be observant to the surroundings when you get to the interview itself. Thanks. Probably not. Probably not. You will? Okay.
It was NYU.
NYU. Yeah, and not surprising. That's a steamroller environment, right? Highly credentialed, lots of people with lots of credentials and experience. And in a scientific, medical, highly intellectual organization, there's lots of competition. There are a lot of steamrollers in my playground personality, right? Who's the smartest guy in the room? And that just says volumes to the culture. And so you might be in meetings and you might get dismissed. You might be in meetings on Monday and then not get invited the next Monday, because it's all about competence and how smart you are. And it's just, it is what it is. I mean, you can't change it. Yeah.
Sorry, just a follow-up.
Sure, please.
So when you're by yourself and it's a panel,
Yeah.
how do you stand out like that?
Yeah, that's a little easier. So the confidence, the delivery of your message, not repeating the question. This is not a spelling bee. There are so many people that say, so tell me what makes you a good match for this job. Well, let me tell you what makes me a good match for this job. It's not a spelling bee where they say, spell science and say science, S-C-I. This is like a dialogue, right? This is a conversation. And they want to see how smart you are, and they want to see how engaging you are, and they want to see if you talk sequentially and if you're logical in your explanation, And if you bring people into so if you talk a little bit about people, you talk a little about process, you talk a little bit about enjoying the work that you do and the reason why you feel like there's a match, those four, I'll say them again, those four sentences, you're good. Because now you've tapped into everything: people, process, action, and philosophy. And you might say, my philosophy is blah, 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 whatever it might be. Or I enjoy working with people because I like collaboration and communication in organizations. It doesn't have to be any long-winded thing. Please, whatever you do, have a meter in your head. Do not drone on, because that shows no self-control, and that shows no self-management. Blah, 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 doesn't work. You turn off the interviewers right away. Yes, ma'am.
Going back to your experience when you had to sign people,
Yeah,
you said you're unhappy and that no one talks to you, you quit every week.
yeah.
What advice do you have to someone who's in that position? Like, how do they figure it out?
So I had to change my mindset that the company was bigger than I was, right? And that I either had to get on board or get out. And so that was my choice, was to stay, because I loved what I did. I just was it was like a shock of the culture clashes from Marriott to Solera. And I was respected. It wasn't disrespectful. There wasn't anything there that was harmful. John and I got to work together on some pretty cool projects. Money was not an object. The sky was the limit. We had to hire 900 people in 11 months. I had to change my own mindset about the company's culture. Now, as long as you don't feel like you're being mistreated, then you got to figure out what's going on. And I didn't feel mistreated or that it was a discriminatory type of place. I just had to get in the groove. Yes?
You said like you didn't want people to kind of fill time by repeating the question or anything.
Yeah.
What would you suggest is like a good method if you actually like, if you do feel like you need to fill the time?
So
Given that sometimes they can like throw curveballs that you wouldn't.
tell me about a curveball. Tell me a curveball. Tell me a curveball, because I've never had an interview where I've had a curveball. I've never given an interview where I've had a curveball. Give me a curveball.
So they ask you to react to a particular news
Okay.
article and you just don't know what to do.
So you have to read something and then react to it?
They don't tell you you have to read something in advance, but on the spot they ask you, oh, so this happened the other day on the news. What do you think?
Okay. So what do you think is an organizer question in my playground personalities? So you need to say, there's two things I need to think about, A and B, whatever they are. It doesn't have to be deep and philosophical, right? If they say, how do you feel about this? You could talk about the people, because feeling and people are usually connected. If they talk about what's the philosophy around this, you're talking probably to a steamroller who wants to know a deeper meaning to something. So I'm not saying that if they give you some hexagon and try to ask you to make a picture out of it, that's like a whole other, but it shouldn't be that distracting. Again, think about the culture of the company, because it could be abstract in everything you do at work. If they're thinking so abstract, it could be that that's the way your work environment's going to be. And if you don't like that, then it could be your life. So while you're there. So to say I need a minute to get my thoughts together, I can handle that. Yeah, I need a minute to get my thoughts together. That's different than, that's a good question. See the difference? That's different than repeating the question, because I'm thinking, seriously, that's the question, so why are they repeating it? I'm giving you the other side of the interviewers, what's going on in the big bubble over my head. So does that help a little? Yeah. Okay, great. Anyone else? I'll take another question. Sure.
Just saying I need a minute to grab my thoughts, to me says this person's actually thinking.
Absolutely. That's
They're
not
just
offensive.
regurgitating, they're thinking.
Yeah.
That's a smart thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not offensive. But what is offensive to the interviewer is that's a good question and, repeating the question. Yeah. But absolutely saying what you need. Yeah. Or please repeat that. You can ask for a repeat if you need to buy yourself 20 seconds. That's another way to do it. Yes, sir.
There's no other question. What did you think about when someone answers to I don't know?
Okay, so I don't know is really not a good answer. Okay? Even when I was a kid at home and something broke and my mother said, what happened? And I said, I didn't know. I would get, what do you mean you didn't know? So you really can't say you don't know. So what would be an example Like, I guess if someone asked me how many people are in the world, I'd pull a guess out, like, I don't know, 7 billion, or I'd pull a guess out. But what is it that they're asking that you wouldn't know? I'm just curious. Is it a content question? Is it an experience question? Have you ever worked on this machine? Tell me.
Something that I didn't say I didn't know, but it was one of those moments where I really didn't know, was I was getting interviewed and a letter of recommendation that was written didn't fit like the kind of personality that they were looking for for that position. So they're like, so why would this person call you like a benevolent person, like a benevolent student in their class when you're applying for like a position that benevolency has a role in? And I was like, oh, I don't know why they wrote that.
Okay, so I could have answered that, even though I have no clue what the whole background, because I would have made something up. I would have absolutely made something up. So here's the wild card. Hold that thought about that. Here's a wild card about recommendation letters. They're wild cards, because that could like trump a whole thing. I mean, that's kind of a so I wouldn't necessarily give a letter of recommendation until I was asked.
Yeah, they asked for it.
No, until I was. They asked for it before your interview. Yeah, and I would ask them questions like, "What do you want in the letter of recommendation? You know, like, what is it that they're looking for?" Because is it again NYU again?
No,
Okay. Institution. So here's the problem. Sometimes they look for interviews like they're trying to accept a candidacy for a student for a program. It's a different ballgame, right? So letters of recommendation, I don't even ask for those. You know, I'll check a reference, but they're dicey because you never know what they're going to say. And so to say that I'm a benevolent person, I can give you an example. You know, I'm in my church every week. I've been asked to be on such and such a committee. A humanitarian life really interests me, and I'm on this committee and that committee. That's how I would have answered it. Not necessarily related to the job, but who I am. They're really trying to get an essence of who you are. And that could be what they were looking for. So that answer, because it was about you and not how many people are in the world, it wasn't a fact. That one I wouldn't have said, I don't know. That one I would have made up something, like on my feet. But so I'm curious though, is it a technical question that they may have asked?
What is the technical question?
Yeah, then you have to say, I never worked on that machine, you know.
Or it's just like, what's the definition of R squared?
Yeah, I have no clue. That's an answer. See, the problem is we're so focused on getting the job that we miss the bigger picture, right? We miss, do we really want to work here? Are they asking questions to trip me up? So is my boss going to ask me things to trip me up when I get there? Like, what's the trick here? And there really shouldn't be a trick during the interview. It shouldn't be a trick. And if it is, then maybe that's not the place for you to work. So you got to be a little casual about it. I know trying to find a job is stressful, and I know it's about money, and it's about finding your place, and it's about getting experience, but it's got to be the right place. And so I have to say that I've been blessed that all the positions I've had, I didn't have any bad experiences, but I could see how you could. So there shouldn't be a question that you can't answer if it's about yourself, but if it's about, you know, what's R squared, maybe you just say, I was absent that day in school if you want to make a joke out of it. You could absolutely do that and see what kind of reaction you get. Yeah.
I've also had people at interviews ask me, oh, do you have any questions? And sometimes I'm like, no, I don't have any questions. But like, is that a bad thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you should. So here's the questions you don't ask. What are the hours? What do people wear to work? When am I going to get my next promotion? You know, those questions. But talk a little bit about the company. Companies like to talk about themselves, right? So say, I was on your website. I saw this new product. Tell me about the ABC product. It's as simple as that. And that might be the only question you have. So do something to engage that interviewer. And for the love of Pete, do not bring a notebook and say, oh, questions? Funny you should ask. And open it in front of the interviewer, right? And have 15 bulleted points there and go down the list. It's a sure way of not getting invited back. Okay, so do not do that. But absolutely try to do something to engage. Yeah, and take it off their website or on a recent news article or some publication or something, and make them know that you've done some research. Okay, yes?
If you know the name of your interviewer, is it like something you should hire into an agency or something like an interviewer or a person else?
Sure, that's a great strategy.
Is it okay to kind of be like, so I've researched your profile a little bit, and I was wondering if you could tell me more about this experience or that, or is that kind of come off as a little too,
Creepy?
yeah.
Yeah, it could be creepy. However, it depends. If you pick on the school they may have gone to and said, oh, my dad graduated from there or my sister went there, it depends on what it is. Or I read your bio and saw you spent 6 months in a different country. What was that experience like? Those are different. Just make sure they're big questions and not too specific. That's all.
You should ask questions that are like related to like the job. Like for example, if they like worked somewhere else, like how did you bring that experience to the place that you're working now? Like that's not a good question to ask.
So I don't know. You don't want to put them on the spot. That might be too deep of a question because again, it's not personal now, and I'm not so sure I'd be willing to answer that because you don't know. You would hope that I'm having a good experience at the company, right? But maybe I'm not. So you don't want to bring that to light, but to talk about their personal experience and share with you what happened, or say my dad went to XYZ school, mom, whatever, is perfectly okay. Well, I appreciate the engaging comments. Anyone have last one for the good of the order? All right, thank you.
Kathy is modest, believe it or not. So she has this. What? Oh, you forgot the books. So she's written this fantastic book, which I know about because I kind of edited it. I designed the books.
My writing coach, and you designed the cover.
It's called Oops, I'm the Manager. But it delves into this idea that Kathy has about these playground personalities, that you have always had this personality you probably showed on the playground when you were in 3rd grade. And that the people you work with still have those personalities, the steamroller, the peacemaker, the organizer, and the revolutionary. And it's in knowing who you are and knowing and sort of figuring out almost right away who that person is you're talking to, what their personality is, and knowing how to communicate, knowing that is a huge thing. Like I'm definitely a steamroller. I'm in charge and I have big ideas, et cetera, and I operate from this level. And I do not suffer from personality. But when I meet like a peacemaker, I just feel like I roll completely over them and they can't communicate with me because they're just trying to make the situation better and I'm just trying to get to the bigger picture. And so while I might be asking simple interview questions, they're not answering me truthfully because they're trying to answer me the way that they think I want to hear it, as opposed to what they really want to say. So when you know kind of what the personalities are, it makes communicating with people so much easier. So much easier. So I know you're going to give some of these away.
Yeah, what John's suggestion was, which has been a long-time suggestion, is there's some cheat sheets in the back. And so you're able to kind of you can read the book, but also kind of read the last 4 pages and kind of summarize. It is a game changer if you're open to it. I just worry that you guys are looking at so many other angles of interviews. I wanted to try to give you some basic ideas, but absolutely talk into the culture of that company. And so like Staples, let me have fun for a minute. Okay, I'll come back up. All right, so if we did Campbell's Soup, if you were interviewing at Campbell's Soup and it was good, what kind of culture do you think is there? Relaxed, fun, family, tomato soup, grilled cheese, fireplace, Saturday afternoon, snow and rain, right? So it feels comforting. So if you come in with I have 8 questions and I want to know what happens this, it's probably not going to match the culture. Now, think about Staples. Pack it, ship it, send it, mail it. It's got the multicolored 5 things on there. What kind of culture do you think might be there? Yeah, pretty decisive, right? So speaking in terms, I have 2 things to say. Let me share with you 2 experiences. That could be an airtime filler. I have 1 big experience let me share with you. That might gravitate to that interviewer. How about Dunkin' Donuts, Life on the Run? Pretty right? Pretty actionable. Or you'll see people running and people moving, and so if you look there scared and rigid and you look scared, you're probably not going to match the culture there. And how about BMW, like the ultimate driving machine? So when my BMW is dead on the side of 95 because it's not working, I call my guy and say, your ultimate driving machine is dead on the side of 95 and someone needs to get me. You know, but think about the company. What kind of company do you think, what kind of company do you think BMW is? Pretty technologically advanced. They've got the right systems. They don't really want any, if you've ever looked at their manual, their owner's manual is like 300 pages of 0.6 font. You know, they want you to know they're the smartest guys in the room, right? It's about innovation and research and development and technology. So you've got to think big to be in that interview. You can't be in the weeds because that's probably not the culture. Now, I'm making some leaps here, but when I do a lot of speaking about how to find jobs for people who have lost jobs after working 25 years, those are some of the things I share. When people leave companies, they leave companies because they don't match the playground personality of the company. So if you feel like you want to be more humanitarian-like, working at Staples might not be it. And if you're a little bit more creative and think big picture, maybe working at Staples is not it. If you're the scheduler, decisive, I like my spreadsheets and I like black and white and things that work, that might be the place for you. Now, I'm making giant leaps here, but a lot of times we don't fit into the culture of the company. It's not that we don't like the company, there's just not a fit. See the difference? Okay, any questions about that? Great.
So my name is John Gann. I leverage my vast personal experience in business and arts management to uncover and problem solve programming, operating, and marketing experiences for media businesses and nonprofits. So that is my kind of opening statement when I meet someone. That, or if I'm really in an elevator, I say, I run film festivals around the world, which sounds a lot better, but the other one is kind of an attention grabber. It's kind of my log line, my personal statement. So I'm going to show you some personal statements. I'm going to try to figure this out. I have some slides. No, you're good. I thought I hit on. Is the machine humming? No. I am. We gained some technical assistance. It's all good. No. It doesn't like me. There you go. There you go. Thank you. I'll give it a second. Yes, it's coming on. It takes a while. It's hot. Well, okay. So when you're messaging, and I come from a marketing background, is what I started with doing before I got into film. I own a design and marketing firm for 20 odd years. Messaging is about having a single message, a unified message. When you have a single message, it lessens confusion, it shows strength of your product or you. It's highly targeted and it reinforces your vision. It's really important to make sure that you kind of narrow down your personal statement and who you are for whatever purpose you're using it for, an interview or meeting someone, et cetera, to this single message. If you have multiple messages, it just confuses people. I'm a this and I'm a that, right? I'm a photographer and I'm a scuba diver person. Okay, well that's kind of, I'm not getting it. As opposed to saying I'm just an active guy that does lots of things. Multiple messages weaken your identity. They show a lack of vision. And I think that on an interview especially, people are looking for, I mean, you're young, you don't have a lot of experience. They're looking for your vision. They're looking for your passion. And if you can show that, that's probably the most important thing. I know when I do interviews, one of my big questions is, what is your passion? It's not like, you know, I like puppy dogs, that's not your passion. I want to know what do you want to do with your life? Like, I really want to hear that, because if what you want to do with your life is kind of what I'm interested in, and doing, I want to give you a job. I want you to get there. So a single message is key to this. And part of that single message is we use that to make this thing called a log line for film. A log line is what we used to call the TV guide description, but there's no more TV guide anymore. So it would be your Netflix description. Right. It's your Netflix description. It's that one sentence that describes the film or whatever you'll be watching. Okay? So log lines are brief one sentence summarizing a film, often providing both the synopsis of the plot and the emotional hook. A log line, when it's successful, has three key elements to it. Who is the story about, the protagonist, what he strives for, and what stands in his way. It seems pretty simple, the who, what, and where, putting it together into one sentence. But your word choice is key to this thing. So I'm going to show you some examples of 3 log lines, all from the same movie. And you can see how just word choice alone changes the entire meaning of it. So you have transported to a surreal landscape, a young girl kills the first woman she meets and teams up with 3 complete strangers to do it again. You have when a farm girl from Kansas accidentally kills an evil witch in the land of Oz. The witch's sister swears vengeance and tries to kill the girl before she can seek the protection of a powerful wizard. And you have after a twister transports a lonely Kansas farm girl to a magical land, she sets out on a dangerous journey to find a wizard with the power to send her home. Of course, it's the Wizard of Oz, but if you're looking at the first one, it sounds like a Tarantino version of it. Second one sounds a little kind of like a horror film. And the last one is probably the one you've seen in a Netflix description. So word choice makes a huge difference in your log line. Or in this case, we're going to call them a personal statement. That just the types of words you use, the emotions those words project, make all the difference in the world. Okay? So kind of turning this example, turning a log line into a personal statement. So kind of redefining it, a personal statement is a brief one-sentence summary of your skills, qualifications, and objectives. It's not just who you are, but kind of what you want. So instead of maybe who the story is about the protagonist, you're looking at instead what are your assets and your skills, maybe instead of what he strives for the goal, or what are your goals, and finally, instead of what stands in his way, why should someone care? And I think that's really an important part when someone's introducing themselves to you. Why do I care about you? Or why should I care about you? Okay? You know, so I get all the time, I'm a filmmaker and I'm doing this and this and this and this. Well, that's great. I meet 30 of you a day. Why should I care about you? You know, not just because you're passionate, but maybe because you're making specific films for specific audiences. Maybe it's because you're trying a new type of technique that's never been done before. Maybe because you're now experimenting with VR and an augmented reality segment. Whatever it is, it's something that's different, that's all of a sudden I want to care about you. So I'm going to kind of show you the revolution and the evolution of how I kind of came up with my personal statement, and we're going to actually do an exercise together. Betsy, can you hand out? So I have little worksheets and pens. I brought pens because I know people don't carry pens with them anymore. You all have phones. I couldn't come up with a website fast enough to make this happen. So the first version of my personal statement was, hi, I'm John Gann. I'm an industrious go-getter who has created a series of entrepreneurial businesses and events specializing in film and marketing presentation. It was an interesting first draft. It was the first thing that came to my mind. It used words that to me sounded really great: go-getter, industrious, entrepreneurial. But I realized right away that this was not probably the one I was going to end up with. So kind of looking at that, I did 2 things. First of all, I kind of went with first looking at word choice. Again, looking at the Wizard of Oz example, but you want to pick the right words that are clear and strong and descriptive, while you're trying to at the same time minimize confusion, exaggeration, repetition, and cliche. It doesn't mean you can't boast about what you're good at, but you shouldn't exaggerate that I'm the best, like some people. You should just try and pick words that are strong and change. So always using action verbs, I do, I am, not I am going to, or not that I have, but I am a filmmaker. I am an entrepreneur. I am doing this. Not I'm going to be doing this. It has a lot more action. It has a lot more pow and power when you do that. Your personal statement is ever evolving and target specific. Literally, I was changing words in my head as I was coming over. I was changing like the word, I use my vast experience to I leverage my vast experience. It's a very different word. It means it's a much more action word. It also means that I'm not just using it, I'm somehow using it in a clever way to get something that's slightly different, okay? And this goes to when I tell people about screenplays. So for a personal statement, after you completed your 5th draft, you might be close. You probably won't be. It's sort of like screenplays. When you're on draft 30, maybe you're ready to shoot. You know, I see a lot of people who say, "Oh, I've written 3 drafts of my script. I'm ready to shoot." And I'm like, "Oh, please! I never want to see that, because it's gonna suck." The next thing I did was I came up with some personal qualities. So first, I'm going to have you, kind of backing up a bit, I'm going to have you take a minute or two and just come up with a first draft of what you think your personal statement might be. Just think, who am I and kind of what am I doing? I'll give you a minute. I'll play a little music. You can play along. So going back to my first one. I'm a go-getter. It's just not the right word. Good. Looks like a lot of you finishing. Okay. So I want you to, at the count of 3, out loud, read your statement. We're all going to read it together. No one's going to hear you because they're going to be saying their own. But I want you to hear yourself say it out loud. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, come on. Who cares? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. So when you say that in your head, does it already feel a little odd? Okay, good. So I'm going to have you work on the second part of this thing. And first thing is that in 30 seconds, write down what you think are your top 4 assets or skills. What do you offer that you think are fabulous about you? It could be anything. I'm great at dog walking. I cook a mean manicotti. You know, I have great communication skills. Right. Okay. Whatever those are. And you know that they're top because they're the ones that come to your mind right away. Not the ones you have to dig down, like my last one here. I'm a dreamer as a foot in reality. As I was typing that, I was thinking, that is the dumbest thing I've ever written. So as we recraft this, what is going to be the goal of this personal statement? What do you want it for? I was writing mine as a general answer for what do you do? I get all the time, what do you do? And especially now that I'm sort of in between, I'm doing a lot of consulting. I don't really work for anybody. You know, even my mother goes, what do you do? I said, how many bonbons all day? No, I leverage my personal life to make businesses better. What is your goal with this version of your personal statement? Again, it's like a log line. It's like anything. It's going to change over time. It's going to change for the audience too. If you go into an interview with Apple, your goal is probably going to be different, and your wording is going to be slightly different than if you go into a job interview with Microsoft. Same type of companies, but very different cultures in the way that they interact with people and the way they want to work with you. Okay? Okay.
And make no mistake, the first question usually they ask is to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right.
Okay, you can't spend like 8 minutes doing that.
Right.
And so the log line would be awesome to have it and just like say it with confidence.
Right.
Absolutely.
And the last question is, in one sentence, why should someone care about you? What do you offer that's different and unique, and why should someone care about you and what you have to say? And again, this will change based on the interview you want also. But it's important that this is sort of, this comes through with what you're writing. Okay. Okay. So as you're writing that, I'm going to go through drafts 2 to 4 of my personal statement, okay? No, I'm not going to take you to 30. I'm just going to take you to the final. So draft 2 was, hi, I'm John Gann. I create film events internationally and consult with dozens of film festivals, organizations, and businesses on marketing, audience building, filmmaker outreach, and strategic planning. So as soon as I wrote that, I thought, wow, this is really technical. It's very specific to film. It says film like 3 times in it. It was way too technical about what I do, what I actually do. It shows no passion. It just says, this is the laundry list of what I can do for you. Not really exciting. So then I kind of went the complete opposite way, and I went, so hi, I'm John Ganna. I am the sum of my life experiences as a marketer, filmmaker, event producer, author, and entrepreneur, which sounds great. It sounds like I've done everything but water ski. But it doesn't necessarily say anything about what I can do, and it's really rather generic. Like, it sounds like, wow, he's had 4,000 jobs and hasn't kept any of them. Okay.
And that also doesn't help the interviewer with which bucket, which lane do you want to be in.
Right.
If you're looking for a job and say, I can do anything from, producing to acting and everything in between, makes it really hard for the interviewer to try to figure out what lane
Right.
you want to be in.
Right. And I would say, just when I see a new film, a student film, and it will say, written, directed by, I know it's probably pretty good because you can probably do 2 of those things. When I see it and it says, written, directed, edited, and produced by, I know this is going to be 9 minutes of a nightmare because you can't do all of that. Okay? You can't do all of that successfully. You might be able to pull it off, but pulling it off isn't successful. Okay? So it's really important that your personal statement is sort of as narrowly edited as possible. So my 4th draft was sort of a combination of these 2. As a marketer, filmmaker, and event producer, author, and entrepreneur, I use my experiences and connections to creatively uncover and problem-solve marketing, operations, and programming issues for my film, arts, and commercial clients. It's getting more to what I want. It's just too much of a mouthful.
It's good though, because it gives me, as the interviewer, it gives me a lot about the couple of things you can do, and that you're not probably afraid to solve a problem.
Right.
You can think creatively. It talks about the things that you didn't say.
Right.
That I can kind of intuit from that, so I like it.
Yeah, no, it's not bad. And I think I would use this if I was meeting a new client for the first time, that, to sort of give this vast overview of what I do. I mean, this is kind of my website in a nutshell, right? But I think it's like, for me, it was slightly too much. So then I sort of whittled that down a bit and then came up with the final one, which I said I leverage my vast life experiences as an arts and business entrepreneur to creatively uncover and problem-solve marketing, operations, and programming challenges for media-related nonprofit and commercial clients. I could probably even get that even further down by saying I leverage my vast life experiences as a arts and business entrepreneur to uncover and problem solve marketing, operations, and programming challenges for my clients. I don't even, depending who I'm talking to, I don't even need the media-related nonprofit and commercial, just for my clients, which would be perfectly good. Okay. So now that you've written down a few of your skills, and you've written down maybe your goal and who you think this is for, I want you to take another 2 minutes and sort of recraft your first draft into another draft. I'm not going to call it a final draft, because your final draft will come in a few days. You'll be in the shower and you'll be like, ugh, that's what I want to say about myself. Right. Right.
I do my best thinking in the shower.
I do too. I do too. In the shower and on the subway.
Basically someplace where there's no good way to write it down.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, just scrambling in the car.
Exactly.
Take it out.
So while you're writing this, I'm going to give you a few tips about pitching in general. So pitching in film is the way of life. It's how things get done. It's how people work. If you can't pitch your product, your project, you're going to fail miserably. And as soon as I hear people say, well, I've got an idea, it's about a guy and he does this, I'm already out, right? I need to know, I need that quick one-sentence description. That's how much time I have for you. That's how much patience I have for you. I can give you one sentence, right? You better make it good, okay? Because if it's good, I know you thought about it. I know that you're passionate about it because you understand it. And I know that you're probably someone I want to work with because you have passion and knowledge, which are really, to me, much more important than anything else. With that comes confidence. And it doesn't have to be, like you said, this boastful confidence of, I am again. It's much more, I'm comfortable with who I am, and I'm going to tell you about my project in a way that makes it affable, it makes it friendly, and it makes it exciting. And I want to be excited by what you say. With that comes eye contact. With that comes good posture. I can't tell you how many times I meet someone who goes, hey, I'm a filmmaker, and I'm like, whatever. I'm done with you already, right? Stand up straight, tell me what you want, look me in the eye, sell it to me. Because if you can do that, and I know it's your first impression and it's scary, but if you can do that, you can do almost anything. Okay? Looking someone in the eye is the hardest thing in the world to do, but when you do it, it's incredible. Okay? What else about pitching should we know?
It reminds me of a funny story when my fifth grade niece asked me to be a chaperone. She asked me to come with her on a class trip. And so I said, sure. So I drove to Philly and I got to the classroom and Miss Kennedy, I remember her name. Miss Kennedy said, oh, Mr. Chaperone, we're so happy you volunteered to be a chaperone. I said, Sarah, what did you do? She goes, oh, I didn't think you'd mind. Then I had 6 fifth graders, right? And I was scared to death. But they were all girls. But I knew I couldn't show any fear, right? Because they would have taken me for a ride. And so they were all in the ladies' room. They were all in the restroom after one of the exhibits. And I said, what are they doing? So I bust them like, ladies, let's go. They all filed out. So the teacher's like, hey, you're pretty good. I'm like, that's just an act. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I showed the confidence, and the kids were great with me the rest of the day. And I wanted to make sure I didn't embarrass my niece. But sometimes you have to have that confidence, even if you have no clue how it's going to work, because the other person's never going to know.
Right.
And it just, you can't even replace confidence and intellect. You have to be confident in what you're either pitching or what you want to share.
Right.
I think that's really the crux of it.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. Oh, so when we do pitch events around the country, we usually do them, we have obviously people pitch in front of a panel, and we critique. If you are interested and you would like to read your personal statement, we don't have to necessarily critique it unless you want us to critique it. But I'm kind of curious as to hear what some of you have written. You don't have to be embarrassed by
I'm
it.
nicer than he is.
Yeah,
Yeah. Leslie's nicer than
Betsy's the nicest of all. Right. Oh, you want to start? Okay.
No, I'm saying,
Oh.
no, I'm saying I'll start.
Oh, okay, got it. Anyone want to read their statement? Feel confident enough to read it? Go ahead. Yep.
I am a passionate philanthropist, aspiring to neurosurgery and musicology and the place of these disciplines in Christian society.
Oh. Interesting. Okay, that's pretty good. So philanthropist. So in the sense of,
In the sense of dedication to people.
maybe I wouldn't use that word.
the philanthropic word.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like the dedication to people
yeah.
because it has to sound real,
Right, philanthropic to me sounds like you're giving money away.
or that you run a foundation.
Right,
and that-
right.
Yeah, you're collecting money, raising money. But dedicating your life to people is a whole different.
Right,
whole different
right.
deal.
I'm dedicated, I'm passionate about
Yeah,
putting these things together.
like it.
I'll just sum it up in one word, because it feels like a passionate person dedicated to people is too much and too exhausting.
My passion is to.
I see it as you talked about neuroscience.
Right.
Did you say neuroscience?
Neurosurgery.
Neurosurgery. So maybe it's the crossover point
Right.
for the patient in the neurosurgery and the dedication that we have to the people. So maybe you have to think of the crossover piece. That might help. Where they intersect, what does that mean?
Right. I'm interested, all right. Passionate about the intersection of neurosurgery and musicology.
We'll rely now, but
Right.
that's what I would say.
Yeah. Your best friend for this thing is a thesaurus. Like literally, and visual thesaurus online, which is kind of like this weird website where you put in a word and it kind of has spokes to other words, and you kind of,
Oh, cool. I didn't know
and you click on one of those and it gives you spokes to other words. It's fantastic. It really helps me as a writer try to find that right word, because a lot of times when I'm writing, the right word isn't coming to my head and usually comes to me the next day in the shower. But using a visual thesaurus like that is a huge tool. Just Google visual thesaurus. There's like 2 or 3 of them online. Anyone else want to read theirs? Oh, yeah, go.
Hi, I'm Imani McKay, and I use my connections and practical experiences working in legal, nonprofit, government fields to solve funding and public outreach challenges in the U.S. and
Wow.
Wow.
I'd hire you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More organizer life versus steamroller life.
Right.
Can you read it again with a little bit more oomph behind it? That's a technical term.
Hi, I'm Imani McKay, and I use my connections and practical experiences working in the legal, nonprofit, and government fields to solve funding and public outreach challenges in the U.S. and
Yeah, that's really good.
The delivery.
Yeah, right.
That is even, the confidence in delivery even means more than what you're saying.
Right.
So I think it's that good.
Right. And I like that you're specific geographically, the U.S. and Middle East, as opposed to worldwide. It sounds very, people like, when I say I create film festivals worldwide, I created them here, UK and one other place, but it sounds better to say, so part of me says sounds better to say worldwide, but truthfully, if I just say the UK, people are like, oh, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. I like fascinating. Anyone else? Last one?
Well, be brave.
Come on. It's only being recorded. I'm kidding. No one? Okay. This is a good thing for you to take with you and to work on. Because honestly, if you have this one statement, if you walked into an interview and you said, and that's what you told me, or I was in an elevator and talking to Betsy about a job opening, and you said, oh, by the way, my name is, and I do blah, 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 I'd be like, give her that girl an interview. I want to know more, right? So a strong personal statement, like a strong log line, strong description to a film, really sells that product, okay? And you're trying to really sell yourself. And you're really you are competing against lots of others who are going for that same job. So what sets you apart is the fact that you are organized and you have this statement, this clear statement about who you are. I'm gonna have you touch briefly on social media,
Yeah.
cleaning it up.
This is on. Hi, everyone. I'm Betsy Walters. I'm the executive director of CINE. And I kind of wanted to just touch briefly on your social media. As we were talking about, this logline is a great way to say who you are. Your social media also says who you are. The problem is it's often saying who you are to your friends, to your family, trying to be an influencer. That's not necessarily always going to be as beneficial as you need it to be when you're getting a job. So that's the one thing. So especially today, I'm talking to you as someone who hires, as an employer, and as someone who looks at social media, what is beneficial. And I think sometimes we always think, especially something like Facebook, it's our friends, it's our family. I still have an aunt who thinks it's email, and every time she posts something, she thinks just I'm seeing it, not the whole world seeing it. I can't ever make her understand that's not the way Facebook works, but sometimes it can feel that way a little bit, that this is just a conversation we're having with friends. But it's out there, and you need to remember that, especially as you're going into this. And as an employer, what I'm looking for when I look at social media and your social presence and your feeds is your judgment. It is telling me who you are, but it's also telling me, kind of more about you and what you will be like as an employee. Do you post constantly? Do you post from credible sources? Do you seem to have knee-jerk reactions? Do you not have an unexpressed thought? Is everything going on Facebook? These are all things that I kind of know. I look at that and I say, can I trust this person? Trust is really the key word there, because when I hire you, you're going to be representing. So, if I hire you at CINE, you're representing CINE. And that's going on your LinkedIn profile. And it's probably going on your Facebook and your Twitter and anything like that. And if something happens, the first line is so-and-so is at CINE, and this is, so I need to know I can trust you. So that's something to be thinking about in the as you're looking at your social media feeds. Is this something that might give someone pause? Which can be tough to know, but it's the thing, as you're looking at your feed, as you're looking at your Instagram feed, as you're looking at your Facebook page, something to always be thinking about is this something, that will give someone that moment's hesitation. So if you have any thoughts about that, take it down, or reset your privacy. If you're nervous at all about it, change your privacy settings, because know that employers are looking at this, and that is something to kind of be aware of. And also don't forget, I think there are little ways that our social feeds tell the story about us that we're not always thinking about. Every time you like something, that will, for example, if I like something on Twitter, a lot of times that will show up. If I say I'm interested in going to an event, that will show up. So sometimes it's not even just the things I'm writing about. It's not even the posts I'm sharing that are telling the story about me on social media. It's also the things I'm kind of just interacting with. That tells a story about you. So you need to make sure it's the story you want to be telling. And just be mindful also, because you never know who might be seeing this, who might be interacting with it. You might put out something that you think is relatively innocuous, or it's funny, or it's an in-joke between you and your friends. But you don't know how someone else might react to that. You might not know who might be offended by that and what the consequences of that might be. I just actually want to tell a story about that. Has anyone ever heard the name Justine Sacco? So it's a really interesting story I find fascinating. She was a PR marketing executive. This was in 2013. She had 170 Twitter followers, and she just kind of liked to write sarcastic jokes, things for her friends, and thinking, who's going to see it really? And so she writes a joke. She's in Heathrow Airport about to get on a flight to South Africa, and she writes a joke that I think we can all agree is not the best, because she's going to Africa and she makes a joke about AIDS, and let's just put it that way. And she thought it was just a funny joke. She presses send, gets on an airplane. She has 170 followers, and by the time she gets off the airplane, she is the #1 trending topic on Twitter, because someone saw her tweet and said, this is terrible, this is really offensive, and it went from there. The great thing about social media is you can connect with the world, and the flip side of social media is you can connect with the world. And it might be, she thought it was a really innocuous tweet. She did not think she did any, she later said, yeah, that was kind of dumb. But it was certainly not anything that in the moment she thought, oh, wow, this is going to blow up my life. And it did, because where I got the story was from a New Yorker piece called How One Stupid Tweet Blew Up Justine Sacco's Life. Hand to God, that's the name of the story. She got off the airplane and she didn't have a job anymore, because her company had to go online and say, we agree this is offensive, and as soon as her plane lands, we will take action and talk to her about it. So These are things, again, I just want you to be thinking about every time you press send on a tweet or post on Facebook or you share that Instagram picture. Just think about, how does this portray me to my employer? Again, I'm not saying you're going to do that. That's kind of an extreme example. But this is the nature of social media. It can catch fire. And as an employer, we are always being cognizant of that. We are checking it. We are looking at that because you represent us. So if you ever have any pause, don't press tweet. Or if it's something you even have a question about, oh, maybe I shouldn't have tweeted that last year, take it down. There's the delete button. Change your privacy settings. But just think about that as you're looking for a job, because that is something, as an employer, we do check.
And I was going to say, larger companies actually use online tools so they can put your Facebook feed through, and it will spit out kind of a personality report saying this person writes negative things more often than they write positive things. This person focuses on cats and politics, as opposed to this person focuses on dogs and something else. That a lot can be fed, gleaned from your feeds, and a lot of companies are using online tools to sort of do a personality assessment on you based on what you're writing. So if you're in doubt, or maybe you're getting a little too political for maybe an employer's taste, maybe you need to change that post to friends only as opposed to public, so they can't see it unless they friend you.
So just think about it.
Yeah, and I would say, especially, as John said, you can't be totally private in this day and age. And I don't think you need to create, if you're, to use the dog walking example, if your passion is dog walking, you're trying to get a job in that, I don't think you need to create a feed that just talks about dogs and dog breeds and dog walking 24/7, because that would almost be a little weird. But I think, just make sure, it's not so, as you said, the picture of your friend throwing up. That's not your feed. I think it can be a mix. Yeah.
And no, I mean, I lost a gig last year because I posted something on Facebook kind of quickly, and the client said, that contract we were going to hand you, we're not going to hand you anymore. So I was like, ooh, well, okay. I mean, I take responsibility for my actions, and I wasn't that upset. I was upset with myself more than anything else. But people are looking. They're looking at your feed, and they're looking what your influence is, and that's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Any questions, concerns about any of this? Good. Go out and kill it. Make it good. Get that job. Get that job. Just be confident. Really know about yourself. That single message is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
So how do you want to give these out?
I don't know. How do you want to give them out? Well, two people were brave enough to read their personal statements. I think 2 people get books. There you go. I think that's a good way to do it.
Happy to sign them too.
Oh, even better. So come up and sign them for you. Thank you guys very much for coming on out. I appreciate it.